All right, I'm going to introduce you to the virtual lab software that we're going to use. So when you click on the link for the website, it should take you to a page that looks like this. And this is going to allow us to have some virtual lab equipment for today's lab. So you're going to click on the balancing act thing. One thing I want to note here, there are two ways to explain what is going to happen in today's lab. One is using the thing that we are trying to learn about, which is center of mass. A different thing, which we will also learn about, but has a slightly different mathematical relationship and a different way of thinking about it, is torque. The primary purpose of this lab is not for you to understand how to balance a seesaw, which is what we're going to do in the lab, but to understand how center of mass works. And so although, especially if you've taken like principles of engineering, you might know about torque, you might know an equation for torque, and that might allow you to get through the lab and balance the seesaw. But if you use torque, it is not going to help you identify the relationships that you need to understand for this unit and what we are actually trying to understand. And so what I need you to do is, if you know how torque works, I need you to not do it that way. I need you to try to find a different way and not shortcut using torque, because then you will not learn the concepts that we need. You will just get a validation that something that you've already learned works, which of course it does, but that is not the purpose. So we're going to click on the balancing act thing, and that should load up. You get three options here, and you're going to click on Balance Lab, and double click. All right, and then what it brings us to is this sort of seesaw-looking thing that right now is being held up by a couple of pillars, and we can put on here some masses sort of anywhere that we want. So I can take like a 20 kilogram mass. Oh, sorry. One thing I forgot about is you want to display the ruler. That way we can actually get some measurements out of this. And so I can put different objects anywhere I want. And then I can try to figure out, is this going to balance? And so if you click the little button down on the bottom, you'll see that in this case, hopefully that was obvious, it does not balance. And so what we're going to do is you're basically going to be given a series of problems during the lab where I give you an initial setup and you need to figure out where to put one more brick in order to make it balance. So for example, maybe I give you a setup where we'll put this one like here. We'll put one over here. Maybe we'll use the 15. And so this system, like right now, does not balance. And so what I might ask you during the lab is, okay, how can you get the seesaw to balance using only, without moving anything, but by just adding a single 5 kilogram brick? Where do you have to put the 5 kilogram brick? And so if you put it in the wrong place, it won't balance. But if you put it in the right place, it will. Now, one thing you can do is you don't have to constantly like click and unclick. You can just move this to different spots. The problem is we're trying to think intelligently here. And so if you just sort of like constantly just like move this around and be like, oh, where does it work? No, not there. No, you're not going to learn anything. Instead, what we want to do is think critically about what is going on and figure out where we think it's supposed to go. And so in this case, the answer is here. And we would ideally like the process to look something, more like this, where we got the problem set up. We know it's not balanced, and you think about, okay, where should the 5 kilogram brick go? You're going to use the relationships and observations that we've made, and then you eventually conclude, oh, it'll go there. And ideally, in 1 or 2 clicks, you get it right. because we don't want to just brute force our way through it, because then we don't actually get a chance to recognize our patterns and test our hypotheses about what the relationships might be. And so please do not sort of force your way through the lab by just sort of slapping the masses down until it balances and then moving on to the next question. We're going to work through progressively more and more complicated patterns. And you should hopefully always be able to, by thinking critically about the pattern, maybe for a couple seconds, maybe for a lot longer, but by thinking about it and figuring out what's going on, you should hopefully be able to just sort of drop the brick into one place, or maybe in a couple spots, and only in a very final act of desperation would you start moving the mass around to all of the different spots.